Great. Well, I think it's 7 o'clock, so we will start. And just to say that we're going to be having a conversation, Robert and I. If you have any questions that you'd like to put to Robert, there will be time to put them at the end. And if you could use the chat function to do that, Kat and maybe various other monitors will be picking up on your questions, and I will then kind of sift through them and put them to Robert. So please do put questions that you'd like to ask Robert. And just to mention before we begin that our next talk in May is with Kat Jenkins, who will be talking about tax justice and her work for Church Action on tax justice. So we'll look forward to that in May. But on to this evening. And I'm very grateful, we're all very grateful that Robert Alexander's agreed to be here this evening and talk about his experiences of how he became involved in the circular economy, some of his background experiences, his experiences as a Christian, and how all that's led into the work that he does. He's an experienced business professional, a successful entrepreneur in a number of different sectors, and he's had this focus for the last few years on circular economy solutions. So the way we're going to do this really is it's going to be less of a talk and more of a set of questions, which we hope will become a conversation. So I'm going to say greetings and over to Robert at first, but I'm also going to ask him a question to start us off, which is really, Robert, tell us a bit about your early years and your upbringing and some of the background to your to where you are now.
All right. Well, thank you, John. Everybody can hear me okay, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's still good. And yeah, thanks a lot for having me here. I'm really excited to be here. I'm so excited that there's a green Christian community. That's when I heard about it from Catherine Hogg, actually, who's an old friend from many years ago when she was at university in Swansea. And I know she can't make it tonight. She sent me an email. She's got other work on, so that's fine. But really appreciate finding a green Christian and for giving me the time to be here. So yeah, I mean, we kind of were chatting, John and I, and we came up with the 3 C's, I suppose: childhood Christianity, circularity as a bit of a journey for me. So I put together a few slides, which I'll put up because it does actually show a little bit of complementary sort of visage, if you like, to what John's question was. So, you know, going back, first if I may, to I was born in Glasgow, and don't ask me to sing the song. I'm rather croaky at the moment, but I dug up some old images, which was quite interesting. So I haven't done this before. Had an interview about me and myself in childhood, and I'm really quite open and honest, probably about everything that I can recall, as it's been so many years ago since a lot of these things happened to me. But yeah, born in Glasgow, in the slum sort of tenement flats, all gone, all demolished nowadays. I went up there so many years ago and it's all gone. In a street, Cowlairs Road, where I was born, were gangs and murders quite regularly, and fights outside one of the or two of the pubs that were on our little street, you know, almost every night. Busy workmen, you know, in the old days. I mean, gosh, I was born in 54, just to let you know. I'm 68 this year, later on. So it's not easy to remember, but these pictures kind of helped. a little bit. And that's my mum and dad on the top left, which I didn't really realise I had that photograph. And I thought, wow, that's mum and dad. Probably not long after they got married, I think. That's my uncle holding me on the next one to the right. My dad's brother, my mum, at the back of the flats where we lived, and there was a railway siding at the back, so massive tracks and lots of exploration, as you can imagine, as children, to go in the trains that were in the sidings at the back. And that's my sister, Isabel, holding my cousin. That's the two of us up there at the back again. We'll probably come on to the Navy, but Navy was later on. But growing up in Linwood, then we moved out to Linwood from that street, which was, if some of you remember, the old Roots and Pressed Steel car factory. I don't know if you remember that, but it's all gone now, completely gone. But my dad did end up getting a job in the car factory, which took us out there from the slums of Glasgow. So we got away. But they both actually met in Glen Eagles Hotel. Some of you might know that. It's quite a famous hotel. I've actually been up there after they both passed away. They're both gone now. And she was a waitress and he was a porter. It's that classic story. My dad used to talk about seeing Frank Sinatra and John Wayne, taking their luggage up to the rooms when he was there. He's got no pictures. They didn't sort of take many pictures in those days. They probably weren't allowed to anyway, like we do today. But he was a roofer by trade prior to that as well. So he did work on some building sites after the war. And that's a picture that's down on the right-hand side, actually, when they were up there. That's my mum and dad are there, some of the staff from there. It's an amazing place, amazing hotel, very classy and for the rich. And not certainly for me, because I'm certainly not rich and have no real intention to be rich. And we'll talk about that later, perhaps. But I joined the Royal Navy then when I was 16, moving out of Linwood. I was a very quiet guy, very quiet, and some would say weird when we were there younger, because I wasn't conforming to the things that everybody else was doing. I wasn't smoking. My sister was smoking. I thought, well, why should I smoke? And I've been like this all my life. It's funny to look back. But I wasn't conforming to the norms, dating girls. I hardly dated a girl, I think, before I joined the Navy, to be honest with you. I wouldn't smoke. Wasn't even drinking any alcohol then, but we joined the Navy. That's a completely different way of life. And so I wanted to challenge myself, and I've done that with most things in my life, been very challenging. So is that kind of give you enough about childhood, John?
Yes, no, I mean, that's a really interesting background that you've described, Robert, and maybe we could go on to think about how this background led you towards a kind of interest in what's called the circular economy, but not everyone will know what it means.
Yep.
So maybe you could talk a bit about how that background led you towards the work that you're currently doing.
Yeah, I'll just click another slide in a minute, but I'm looking at gangs there, and I was in a gang, and I was the leader of the gang. There was only three of us, and there was a bigger gang in the street, and we were always chucking stones at each other, like you see them doing in Northern Ireland. That's all we had was buildings that were falling down and rubble. But I wanted to get away from that, so I did join the Navy, and it's perhaps after the Navy, I was a radio operator in the Navy, electronic warfare in the communications branch, and I qualified before leaving. I was there for 5 years, and I qualified before leaving to leading hand status. So I could have ordered some people around, but I was a bit of a lad, as it turned out. I became more I think the person that was inside and exploring, I think a lot of us do at that age, when we reach 16, we get away from home. So it still was on today. But obviously we were in a different era then. And certainly looking back, because I became a Christian after I left the Navy, certainly looking back on that particular section of my life, I wouldn't say to anybody to join the Royal Navy if you were a Christian, because that would be an ultimate huge challenge, to be honest with you. Because the things we get up to when you mix with other sailors, visiting different ports, doing the things you just wanted to explore life, and to get the chance to do it in different countries was really, mind opening to me. And I learned quite a lot through working together in a unit in the communications branch, living in a mess tech with about 21 people there, all cramped in a very small space in a small frigate.
Yeah.
And that was quite interesting. And so I came out of there, and interesting story coming out of the Navy. I'll probably, there's something in a link in a minute, but I got out of the Navy. I signed up when I was 16, and at the age of 18, I was offered to take a 9-year term. So I would have been 27 then. So you get more wages, and thought, well, that's a good idea. I'm loving this. Let's do that. But in the following 3 years, it didn't quite. There was lots of challenges being thrown at me, things that I started to question, because of course you're maturing then into later teenage years. You're going through various experiences, and I became a bit of a character on the ship. I was going to get out of the Navy without buying myself out, because my mother offered to buy me out. She didn't have any money. She said, keep your money. I think I'll get out. I'll do it my way. And lots of the old sea dogs said you won't do it. So I used to go around on the ship, for instance, when I was on watch, and I'd put my Dr. Spock ears on, and I'd be standing up on the bridge and shouting over the town, "I beam me up, Scotty." So I was everybody was laughing at on the ship. So I would push the boundaries, if you like. And I used to walk around with a whistle and blow everybody out on strike, walking up and down the gangway. So, and this wasn't the same guy, who came out quite timid as a teenager. And I even had a copy of Karl Marx's manifesto in my locker. I hid it there. And I even had a doll, which I used to take up to the showers and wash her clothes and hang them up along with all the lads stuff. Everybody was having a great laugh. I was having a good laugh. I was pushing the boundaries. And actually, one day we were in Bergen, in Norway, and my divisional officer, Sub-Lieutenant Ball, that was his name, he came with us on an expedition for about 4 or 5 days to the fjords, where we stayed in various cabins, and it was great fun. But I treated him like one of the lads, if you like, and he would say to me quite politely and nicely, you can't do that, Alexander. You call me by his surname. You can't do that, Alexander. It's not good. The lads won't like it. But we had a good time. But it wasn't an unfriendly way. But when I got back to the ship, and we had about 3 days sail back to the UK, he invited me down every day to his cabin to find out what the issues were with me. And I eventually had to persuade him that it was best for me to get out for a number of reasons. And I wrote a little book that I'd been writing for quite a while about the things that annoyed me. I kept a diary, it was like a diary really. And eventually he agreed to recommend me for an honourable discharge. And so, long story cut short there, I did then come out of the Navy with an exemplar character reference and started to face civilian life again. And I was then back in Scotland, but working in a bomb factory back there. But I wanted the life that we kind of knew a bit more in England. So I left home, landed in Coventry, and probably if I put a couple of more of these clips up, there'll be some interesting elements that come up in the journey to Christianity. And also I've put together some moments and roles of things that I had started to do over the years as a Christian, and right up to date. So there's a lot of stuff in there of different things that happened to me basically at the end of the day. But I ended up on the streets, homeless in Coventry, because that's where I went to do a painting and decorating course. And I got thrown off that. because there was another guy there from London. Keith Jolly was his name, and nobody liked him. The tutor didn't like him, but he didn't want to put him out on his own, so he kicked me off the course along with him, because we were quite pally at the time. And we both had spent about a month then homeless on the streets, waiting for benefits to come through. And that was my first experience of the system, which I later was involved in a lot more with the charity that I set up. I'll talk about that later. But I ended up in the streets, and I even went in Coventry to the annual festive event that's in the park. It runs over the whole weekend. It's a massive park there. And there was a very large tent there run by Christians. It was, people teaching the gospel, and all the churches were inside it in a little stand. And I went in there a little bit worse aware. I'm not sort of proud of this now, but this was before a Christian. I went around with my mates, making them all laugh, taking the mickey out of God, basically. And my story then, when I became a Christian, I'll tell you now, but the year after that, I went back to that same event and went around and told them all I'd become a Christian. And they couldn't believe it. Like, no, I was a changed person at that time. And do you want me to give you a bit more detail of how that actually came about?
I mean, maybe we'll
okay.
Just move on to just explore some of the, there's a whole range of experience.
Yeah.
And of all these different things that you've done, that you've been over the years, what's been the most significant and important for you, both in terms of your faith and in terms of leading you towards the work that you're doing now on the circular economy?
Well, in terms of my faith, I ended up serving in the worship for 35 years, as I put up there anyway. So, and I was committed to the practices every week. I led in worship. Sometimes I learned to play the guitar in the Navy, and I led in worship. And working with all those people, it was a joy to serve God in that. Really, really always loved music, like a lot of us do. I wasn't a bad singer. I wasn't the best. I wasn't going to be, and I didn't want to be, a successful Christian songwriter. But the creative element in me set about writing songs. I used to write quite a lot of songs, and I put an album together, and we got one of them featured on UCB Radio, to say there. But in terms of my faith, it was really, that was something that I think I felt privileged to do. And I've not picked my guitar up for about 5.5 years since getting involved in the circular economy, to be honest, and charitable work. But in terms of faith, that's it. In terms of, I think with my career, and at the end of the day, there's been a number of things in there. I did set up my own business working from home and grew it to £1 million, which is why there's £1 million there, £1 million turnover, employing 6 people. And I had no qualifications, no business experience, but I've always been a bit entrepreneurial, to be honest. Back in the days as a milk boy, as a paper boy, a health food van that I set up and took around the different housing estates. There was always something in me wanting to be, if you like, creative and be tuned into business. And I always liked solutions and challenges. So my career's been fraught with lots of challenges, which I kind of welcome. As why I count it as joy, as it says in James 1. These trials and tribulations that you go through, you look at them as a joy. And I have to keep reminding myself that when I get a little bit challenged. And life it's tough, particularly at times, because I'm working quite a lot on my own. So, but God has been really good, really close to me, looked after me as I look back over the years on what I've done. So they're the couple of things I would say in terms of faith and in career that were interesting key points, I would say, that I was quite proud of and privileged to serve in the church, to be honest with you.
I'm just fascinated by some of these little references in your kind of mind map.
Yeah.
there. So what's the 5 screws about?
Right, the 5 screws, that I had a freak accident playing tennis.
Oh, right, good.
And nobody believed. The church, we were out doing a tennis evening one evening, so we all played against each other. And one of the younger members had a fantastic, he was very good at tennis, a fantastic fast serve, and it was coming right towards an area of my body that had been rather damaging if I didn't get out of the way. And in doing so, I just lost my balance and fell on my hip without breaking my fall in any way. And that broke my hip, basically.
Oh, goodness.
So I had a dynamic hip screw put in the top, so there's a massive scar down the bottom, and big dynamic hip screw in the top with the femur. It's put back in a plate with 4 screws in there. I actually made a little video of it online just because it had nothing to do in the hospital. But they did say that nobody believed me. My wife was there, and a physiotherapist there says, you can't have broken your hip. And I just could not move. It was very painful, but I've still got the 5 screws.
Oh, goodness.
It's not stopped me from getting on.
Yeah. So there's a lot I'm seeing about various trades, painter and decorator, but also moving into things like being a college lecturer, being a manager. Maybe we could begin to talk about your interest in the circular economy and how all that came about.
Okay, I'll put the next slide up, but before I do, as it came about was when I'd in between jobs, probably 20 years ago, I would think now. Somebody in the church asked me, knew I was out of work, and called me up and said, I hear you're looking for a job. Maybe you'd be interested in this job. Now, I'd never met this person before. She was a little bit strange to me, but anyway, we got chatting, and I said, well, why don't I try and help you while I'm looking for work? And I ended up going in to get £337,000. It's at the top of that sort of mind map. I was successful in winning that with the aid of a Welsh, not a consortium, but charity who were getting into repair and reuse, because this woman had a little shop and she was helping waifs and strays. And but it wasn't a charity shop, but the people that used to help out had wrongfully mentioned it in various leaflets that it was. And so I got involved. Trustees, I helped get the trustees. The trustees asked me if I'd help them with various bits and pieces and this fund. And when I got the fund, they gave me a job, and that's how I got into sort of the waste and circular economy side. So I thought it would be useful to actually have a question and explain, because not everybody knows about circular economy, perhaps, John. I think you find that. And basically, it's a tape-making waste world that we live in. And I found a really good graphic that I will help illustrate what it is, and I can take into that obviously some other elements as to how, where we fit and what we're doing. But that's a cycle of society that we live in, with everything that we make and produce, and it comes back around. You can recognize goods getting made, getting thrown away, getting waste. And we, as a charity, I got 3 vans there in a 14,000 square foot warehouse that I'd set up. I set all that up, and all the operations, procedures, and the policies, and got the volunteers organised and interviewed the staff. We had about 14 staff when we got that money, and about 5 or 6 trustees. And wasn't aware of the circular economy there and then, but working in that environment, help clearing houses, helping people, to get goods, come to the showroom, come get involved in administration, warehouse, get involved there, help on the van, be a driver, and run 3 charity shops we ended up having, all associated with a central 14,000 square foot warehouse. And I interfaced a lot with the social services, volunteer organisations, local authorities and everything else in there. So we got to learn a lot about government, how it works and everything else. And we were trying to make this funding last but that wasn't going to happen in the end because the trustees were risk averse. I'd previously set up my own IT business and a couple of other little businesses, and I wasn't. They were. Long story cut short, I left because I thought there's a better way of doing it. But let's come to that in a second and just explain to you. Hopefully that makes sense. You know, goods get collected like we were doing. People consume, goods get collected, they get recycled, they recover the materials. You've got to consider the raw materials that make those things in the first place. You know, where are they coming from? And they're actually running out. If you go to the top of the chain, in terms of a hierarchy of reuse and repair, design is really at the top. You've got to design it right if you're going to allow something to get recycled properly. But those materials can only be recovered so many times, and their use is recycled in other materials can be short-lived on quite a lot of instances. So design is quite at the top. Then you've of course got the production and remanufacturing as well as manufacturing of the raw materials into goods and products, distribution, and there you see collection. But down here at the bottom, reuse and repair is now actually government policy, and it sits quite firmly in its strategy for a circular economy. Now,
and that's the area that you've focused on, isn't it?
That's right. So the products that I have developed sit around the repair and reuse sector. First of all, white goods repair and safety standard, because there is no standard. Anybody can repair an electrical appliance. There's no, and yet there are fires and there are accidents, largely due to a number of different factors, to be honest with you. But safety is something the government is quite keen on, and I've become a member, ESAFE has become a member of the government's Office on Product Safety Standards Business Reference Panel up in Westminster. So they're aware of this standard and certification and a qualification. Also, that's in the white goods, but also in ICT. We now have millions of repairers in the UK. I don't know if you know that, but right to repair came into law late last year, or mid last year, and anybody can repair it. And I'm not against anybody repairing, but consumers are and should be concerned about who's fixing what and what knowledge have they got, and are they using counterfeit parts, or do they know anything about electricity? So there are safety concerns in both of these categories, white goods and ICT. I put together the Innovative Appliance Safety Register because I felt, and I prayerfully thought about this as well, because God is in my life, and this is something that we should go ahead and do, and get my wife's support, and she backed this, because I thought of a good way of doing it through a register, because you can then get into every home, you can ensure safety, but also you can reach a wider community and teach them about the circular economy, but also how to look after the planet and reduce our impact where we live, and impact consumption as well, because consumption, as you can see, sits very neatly into where the reuse and repair is. And inside of this model, we've designed a non-crypto digital currency as well. Now, in locality, we have designed about 20 plus different apps that will be available inside locality as it develops in different phases. And we're launching the first phase of this at the back end of this year, mainly focusing on the appliance safety register. But these apps and the different things that we can do, the social network sits inside there for where you live. And there are potential 8,000 of these places, because it's based on electoral wards where you live, and how you can then get involved in using the apps, measuring your footprint in the waste prevention sector, and the reuse sector and the safe reuse sector, but also lots of other things that are coming, such as food and textiles and glass, all of that stuff. We can do stuff in there to impact all these elements that are in the circular economy. So there are different designed apps inside the big app to help with all of that. And to join that together, we've designed an app then to capture the metrics from the main site of the activity. As you can see, there's a marketplace along the top. There's a marketplace inside this situation. So when you register an appliance, you can drop it into the marketplace from its register, and stakeholders interested in it will contact you, and you can buy, sell, and donate. But do it safely, because we capture product recalls in the marketplace, which the government is quite concerned about. So we've helping them solve an issue there as well, because they don't want goods that are known to have counterfeit parts or counterfeit goods, or stuff that's not fixed to a safer standard can be identified because it's got a product recall. So in other words, there's a fire risk. So we can do all that in this model and capture the metrics and encourage people to get involved in creating their own metrics for community activity, social and environmental, and gifting. There's a number of things we see. So that's that's the circular economy is. Hopefully that's quite clear to give us a general synopsis of that and what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I can just try to summarize to ensure that I understand this and will maybe help others. So what's happening here is that there's a generally agreed government drive to repair and reuse, but there's not the infrastructure to do that in a kind of standard way or a safe way. And what you're providing is a whole set of standards and certifications for things like fridges and cookers and washing machines, whatever, and so computers. You're also encouraging people to register their appliances, and that connects, I guess, with a whole network, a community of a community of technicians or people who have signed up to do that repairing work. I'm not quite sure how. I need to say a bit more about the digital currency and how that links with these different ideas. Yes,
a lot of the things I'm saying here are not all going to be available at the launch. So we've got a number of phases, but we're launching in the beginning. I'll talk a little bit about that after. But the currency would come a little bit later. Basically, we're donating money, which I think lots of businesses should be doing. I mean, there are lots of good businesses saying we're going to help a particular charity for this year or that kind of stuff, but we don't see anybody helping individuals where they live who are struggling with the cost of living, shall we say, and obviously that's exacerbated even more now. And this idea goes back, probably 2008, I think, originally when I came up with it. So the currency was created from the money that we donate, and it has an interesting couple of algorithms that I've designed, and we can use it one or two different ways. But it does engage businesses with citizens where they live. And businesses can give something in return for the currency that you've got. And currencies are going to be available through the volunteer network. So we have a volunteering module sitting inside these apps as well. And that currency is about measuring what we're doing. 75% of that currency goes into the pot, and we call the pot pre-cash and pre-coins. So in the sense that, so who wants the money and why? And people in the local community can vote who gets it, and they should all have to register an appliance, because that's free, so that we can start to divert waste by leaving the system, by staying where it is and be repaired locally, because that's a huge problem that's traveling around and going abroad, and we're low on materials. So there's a complexity of things around that. We're not saying that whole model here. We're focusing on the register at first, but its aims are to do that, and it's designed to work with a currency and a wallet. So in that app would be a wallet where you can use cash and you can use the currency and exchange it. And I've got a nice little video that I can give a link to at the end if people want to watch it, illustrating some of how that works. So hopefully that gives you an idea what the currency is about. It's about employment, economy, and education where we live at the end of the day.
I mean, just stepping back a bit, why are you passionate about this sort of issue?
Yeah.
why is this something that
Yeah,
really driving you?
definitely. I think it's the experiences I've been through of homelessness, first of all, but in a majority level, having spent 10 years at the charity and looking at all the different people coming for help, all the agencies involved in it, and everybody's trying to do something to help, and that's great, but it's so disjointed that many of them disappear. They get millions of pounds of funding and it's disjointed. The currency can go right across the world. I've had people in Europe talk to me, and I've been out to Berlin for an event where they were very interested in what we were doing. They only came to us because of the metal value in white goods, but then they saw we were developing a model, and I went out there and had 2 or 3 days out there where they put a Horizon 2020 bid together, and that was for about 2 million, but they weren't successful, and it's not always easy to get these things. But having seen back at the charity how systems were working, there had to be a better way, and you had to accommodate people who were poor. You cannot actually save the planet if you don't actually include everybody. I know. So you have got very rich people and you've got very poor people, and I think while you've always got very rich people, you're always going to have poverty. Everybody's aspiring to be rich, but in actual fact, there's plenty for us all if we can even things out. So I wanted to even things out using a number of different techniques in this whole model and engage as many people as quickly as we could through a register, because most homes have got appliances around the world. And that would give us a great mechanism by doing that, and by donating money as a business to individual people and showing it on a day-by-day basis, and it being democratically voted by the people who live there in their own locality social network, then that lets them focus on their local sustainability, looking after each other, which the pandemic has shown us that people are there to do that, because that's the one thing I thought about years ago, but the pandemic's made everybody else realise it. But if we work on different systems all the time, there's no uniformity, and yet we do want the same things all the time, and we function in the same places. So seeing that, John, is what drove me to it, because I come up with a solution that won an award, and winning that award was what got me involved in this. It made it be serious, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you relate being a Christian and contributing to a circular economy? How is that a good fit? How do you relate the two?
It's a good fit because I think we all know that the earth is a gift, really, to us, and it's a resource and a gift, and we need to look after it, and not just for our sakes, but for the current generation and the generations to come, until the Lord comes again at the end of the day, because it's in his hands, but we still need to be responsible for the damage that we do. And so I wanted to really enlighten people as to the damage we are doing, which fortunately more and more people are getting on board with it. I mean, you've created Green Christian. So, I was like that way back in the charity, and so there's got to be something better to do, and I had to think about how we're going to do it. So that's what drives me to it. And again, it's not, and I went through this myself. Oh, great, it's a great idea. I could get quite a lot of money out of that. But hang on a minute, you're reading the word, you're having your time with God, and you're thinking, well, greed is a bad thing. We know it is. And I don't want to be someone who's greedy, and I don't want to be seen to be greedy. Instead, I want to show everybody, businesses and citizens, what money is going where, and not wait. Because in a charity, it would take 18 months to find out in a report, but the SOPs report, the accounting methodology for charities, and who's getting what. And I found that too much money was going upstairs and not enough was going downstairs. So that drove me to, let's balance things out. Let's not shout at the rich, but let's work in partnership with them, give them an opportunity to engage in this, and give things to people who don't need it where they live as well. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Let's look at your next slide, and there may be other questions that.
Yes, I've got a few other things to show. Yeah. The questions I'm sure will arise, and hopefully they will. So this was the moment back in 2015 when the decision was made after much prayer and winning this award, beating a number of other companies in Swansea from the Institute of Sustainable Design. And it's sponsored by basically University of Wales, which is why the logo's on there. So I won this award and I entered it, and I just took it as a sign because I wasn't getting a job. I think by then people were thinking I was too old. I certainly applied for some jobs, and the youngsters were getting all the IT jobs when I actually knew quite a lot more about IT than what they did. But your face doesn't fit, your age doesn't fit. And it was the beginning of, I think, what we see as ageism in some aspects. So that was challenging for me.
So what was this award for?
This was an environmental impact award
Right.
in terms of sustainability from the Institute of Sustainable Design based in Swansea. Yeah, that was that there. And that's my business card. You see an image of up the top. On the other side, it's got the e-coin. So it looks like a coin, and it always gets a good conversation when you go out and network with people. Basically, as a multiple brand organisation involved in circular economy, I thought we had to have a circular card, and we're all about locality, community, safety, and e-safe. So we tried to keep the branding related to it because the Triple E comes from the WE Directive, as it's explained down there. Not sure how many of the listeners are aware of the WE Directive, but that came in and that put a whole break on all the charities that I knew around the UK who were helping people with electrical goods. So I visited quite a lot of units around the UK and was part of a membership organisation that represented reuse in the UK. But electrical goods then started to dry up because they got taken away by the schemes, the compliance schemes that DEFRA funded, to collect that and produce evidence of what they've collected, thereby making the manufacturer ensure that what it's taken off the market, or what it's putting on the market, is taken enough off of it as well. But that is the thing that interrupts local repair, because there's nothing left for people to repair, and it's not sustainable taking all that stuff away and reprocessing it elsewhere and selling it back to us or setting it abroad. So my system is an intervention system through the register to start putting the work locally again and stop these guys taking the stuff away and to give money to people in need. So that's what that happened there. So we're tackling, as I say, poverty planet, people in places using waste electrical prevention. There is a couple of links here. I could switch and show one of them. It's only 30 seconds, but I can put the links in the chat later.
I think that'll probably be easier because we're going to need to move on, I think, Robert.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, there on that, we partner with author. Some of you might recognise the manuals. He's a partner in our model as well, and we've developed a qualification and a set of training material to let people teach this in different parts of the country. And we're trying to get some funding for that at the moment. So that was the moment that changed. So here's a quick slide of what localities design is like. The community shops, the directories in there. There's a social network inside it, and it will show the metrics. These are just some of the metrics that you will see in it, but there are more, and I can put a link to other metrics or on email. And again, this is all pulled together inside the app that will come out in a later release as well. So we're not starting with that. So that's the sort of ease along the top that we're trying to cope with: employment, education, and environment where you live. So the new appliances thing register, which we're doing here, and it's basically about safety, resources, jobs, and tackling poverty, as you've heard. And I've just put some key points here relating to the safety side, the resources side, and the job side. So some of those elements may be of interest to some people, that maybe they're jotting down a question or two. But this is what the system will do. It will get involved in producing and linking to existing models that government's already got in place. Because I talk with senior policy advisors at DEFRA who really like the idea of what we're doing, but they won't fund it. So I've had to fund it on my own, and that's what we're busy doing now. And we've got a certain few challenges on at the moment. So some of that information I've probably said already, so I won't dwell on it because of time. And this is basically a set of metrics from the repairs that we've calculated that we can produce at a local basis. This is working with 20,000 households basically and 170 repairs. So I've done all the calculations on a reduction of repair costs. So the repair costs should be at least 2/3 cheaper than what's currently available online. Averaged out would be 2/3 cheaper than the average. And these metrics, we can add 3 zeros to the end of those metrics if we were to get 70% of 28 million households in the UK. But we've got a target of 5,000 to get us going. A few bullet points here, because I'll probably leave this slide up here as we sort of come to an end. And maybe, again, people want to ask questions about some of that or some of the other slides. I couldn't go without mentioning the 5K challenge. We're trying to find 5,000 households so we can actually produce these metrics for real. And hopefully, if it goes off quicker than 5 years to get 20,000 households, and there are 28 million in the UK, then we'll have a plan to try and cope with that. But we don't want to walk before we run on the model. And I've put a link up the top there. Well, I put a link at the bottom, which has got our details, an email address, the fact that we're committing between 5 and 75% of our revenue streams that we can get in the whole locality model to put it in that pot, the metrics you saw earlier on. And today we've put a blog up. It's going to show it in a second. It's doing that. Oops. Sorry, I'll come back to that. I'll put a link in there. That's it. Yes, it's going straight to the link. So that link there, I'll come back to the slide, is an article where will take you to this article here. And it speaks about the 5K challenge that we've got. And people can register and link on there. So if I just close that window, go back to my slide, just here. I need to just share that again, I think. Stop the share. I'll just share it once more so it's on the screen, and then over to you, John. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Share the screen. Here we go. Right, that's it. That's back up there. And I'll put the link in the chat to that article if people were interested in it. So hopefully that's been informative, giving a bit about circular economy, how I got there, and what we're doing to give consumers and businesses a chance to get started on something that could change the world, a community at a time. You know, I have to believe that, but it may not happen. But the only thing I would say is that it won't happen if we don't start doing something. And so I would encourage people to join. Yeah.
Robert, that's really, really interesting. And there are questions coming in at quite a rate. And I've also got a lot of questions as well. One immediate question from Kat. What's your communication plan for reaching people and getting them to sign up as volunteers or whatever?
Yeah, good question. The plan is from now until the end of the year, when we look to reach 5,000, is to run some webinars, talk to some community groups that I've got familiar with, develop this presentation, tune it into different areas and ask people if they'd like to get involved with us. Basically, that is the plan. And I've calculated that I don't need the money to make it when I can run it for probably 2 years without making any money. And I'm not rich. It's only because I don't have a lot of costs, and because I will manage it. But I know I'm not going to get there without people coming on board. You know, at the end of the day, helping us. So that's very important. We need people, and it can be and will be more successful if that's the case. If we can get those people. So that's the plan, to use existing social networks and pull them into what we're doing. Do that. I'll put the link in the chat there just for that article that you saw, if anybody wants that. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. But there are people around. I've made contact with them. I think now that the site's launched, I can ask them on a one-to-one basis if they would mind helping us out to try and get involved. And I am looking to get together a sort of a working group with people that we can become trusted, because you can run your own locality with the way that we designed it and have an administrator and your own blog in your own locality. We've provisioned for all that at the back end of it. So we need to find some people that can come in and engage and work with me and help me, because I don't want to do it all on my own. I can't do it all on my own.
Mm.
And I need to have a balance. I need to be have accountability. I'm seeing my church elder next week, week after next, sorry, to explain to him, and hopefully I can be accountable to them. But we can create a small board eventually, or a CIC itself. But we have to get it going, and I'm looking for people that have got skills that can perhaps help. So hopefully that answers the question.
There have been concept of repair cafes around for a while. How does what you're doing relate to those sorts of repair cafes? I don't know if it's a kind of movement as such, but you know, there are various people, various groups who promote.
Yeah, there are. I know repair cafes. I've had a conversation or two with one of the founders of that, and I know quite a lot about them. Welsh Government's actually supported it quite a lot. So I'm not against repair cafes. They're not funded in any way, and they don't have a sustainability model in terms of making it funded. And their plan, I think, is to create some repair shops. Well, our model, our register produces a thing called an appliance product passport. And the product passport can be linked to the individual repairer if they register with us. So the accountability of what they do becomes theirs. Because in a repair cafe, there is no accountability for any repair work. The person that's accountable is the person that has it repaired. And so there are some flaws, but initially I'm for it. But they need to get trained, and goods are going to come on the market secondhand as they are now, that have gone to repair cafes, and somebody that's found out how to repair something may go off and start doing it without telling anybody and stick it on eBay or anywhere else, and it could be an issue. And so we're trying to bring them on board, you know, fully conversant with them, fully agree with what they do.
Yeah. And have you had a debate with yourself or others about the extent to which, you know, the networks that you're planning, should they be openly Christian? Should there be Christian badging here, or, you know, essentially should be seen by the wider public as secular in basis? And how
definitely, definitely the wider public. I mean, as Christians, we're not just going to do it on our own. As I say, we're not going to make a difference as just Christians around the world. We need everybody on board. So I've got no problem with anybody coming from any demographic, you know, to get involved. We need everybody involved in this, and the sooner the better. We can start reducing the impact we have on the planet, and reward people at the same time through the model.
But in terms of, as it were, branding and, you know, how you communicate, are you have you thought about any overt Christian, to use the word, branding here, or are you stepping back from that?
No. I mean, gosh, you've got a lot of good partners. You've got Roca, you've got Tearfund, you've got Christian Aid. There's a lot of people that you're engaged with, and I would very much like to engage with them as well and see if they would like to get involved. And I can give something that gets people to get their teeth into something. I think that's what's missing, because many people talk about it. So, you know, as far as me, I'm a grounded Christian. At the end of the day, you know, I'm not perfect by any means. You know, I need prayer like everybody else does. That's my faith, and that's not going to change one iota. In fact, it's always in my mind and in my heart and everything that I do. And if I get something wrong, I need somebody to tell me I've got something wrong. So that's why I don't want to be out there doing it. And I believe God's saying to me, you need to get everybody engaged. And I think it's right and proper to do so.
There's a comment from Lynn about about the issue of this whole business of coins. And she's asking, could this concept be explained more?
Certainly.
You know, and because, you know, any, as it were, currency might remind people of bitcoins, and, you know,
exactly,
for a whole range of
Yeah, so I can do that, no problem. I joined Bitcoin movement many years ago. Well, not many years ago, I would say probably about 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago, because I wanted to find out what it was about, because it didn't make sense to me. Ultimately, being part of the Wales Bitcoin group, which is what I joined, I stood up. We find out that they're gambling like everybody else is on currencies. And that's all that cryptocurrency generally does intend, people making money about it, not good for the environment. So we don't do a cryptocurrency. Our currency isn't like that at all. It's non-crypto, so it's like a stable coin, and it has a value of 10p. It doesn't go up, it doesn't go down. The value would change by what you want to sell using e-coins. So if you e-coins can be distributed through volunteer organizations and businesses to get something for it. So it's kind of a trading currency, and it links into the metrics, because the metrics we're making in the impact on the environment and people's lives, are there for you to see. So the measuring of the currency helps justify and contributes to the metrics, and gets us trading with each other and getting things that we can't get, like food, and help and all that sort of stuff. So people can do things for each other, and we monitor it using the currency. So your metrics will be there about what you've done with the currency, as well as what the community as a whole has done with the currency. So it's a digital currency, and it's non-crypto.
Yeah. There's a couple of points really about how you reach out to those people who are not computer or app literate, but who might want to get involved. And not everyone uses smartphones. By no means everyone uses apps, and there's really quite a lot of people in that situation. So
there are quite a lot. I think the majority are probably people that are probably 80 or 90% last time on statistics, but we shouldn't forget them. I quite agree with it. But the easy win at the beginning is knowing somebody, getting to know people locally to help them using it with their actual account. So you can donate currency to people using that app. You can donate them currency, and they'll go somewhere. But we could make available a printed certificate of something that exists as well, but it won't be so live, because you may find that where somebody's offering something for a currency, it's gone, and by the time you get round to doing it there, So I think everybody's got friends and families that can get involved in it, and we're not going to cover 100%. I know that, I recognise that, and we'll continue to look at ways and means of making that possible. But initially, we've got to get a large amount of people on board to take action, start making a difference. But it's a fair point, it's a good point. I don't have a 100% answer on it at this point in time, but I've got some ideas that we could do it.
Yeah. There's a much more general point that Tony has put, which is, there's the whole issue of systemic planned
obsolescence. I can see that from Tony.
So and it's rampant in areas like fashion and mobile phones. And do these techniques, as you can see, say, make repair and maintenance work uneconomic?
Well, let's just say on the electrical side, it is uneconomic to do what we're doing now. And that's a problem, because it's known in government that if a user is faced with a repair or getting other appliances, they are saying that if it's 30% or more for a repair, it's going to be as cheap to get a new appliance, and they're absolutely right. But that's the reason why we're putting community repairers where they live in their homes, working to our standard to actually do the repair, so it will reduce the amount that they would charge, and also recycle parts from the goods. The goods get taken away, so we're enabling the fact that you can take something out of that item and put it into the marketplace and make money from selling yourself. I mean, somebody just paid £250 for a spare part on a dishwasher. This was only a couple of weeks ago. I was speaking to someone online, and because they wanted to do repair, they spent that. But you could have got a dishwasher for £250. I did a study on a motor and a dishwasher that cost me £40 at the end of the day, and the part was £186. That was a few years ago. But that's the problem. See, the parts are not there. But if we capture the recycled parts we make and put them locally in the local circular economy where you live, and in that social network and in that marketplace that's yours, then you can get those parts and you can give them away to help people lower the cost of the repairs or do the repairs. So fashion as well. We've got a textile app in there. We've got glass and cardboard in the system to get that stuff locally, because what's happening, and it's frustrating to me watching it over the last few years, is lots of larger investors are investing in a system where somebody's renting something. Well, we can rent on this system locally. You can rent something on here legally, check with the FCA, and you can rent. So you have to reduce the cost, and you have to own these models where you live, or the rich people take them all away and cause the problems that Tony's making at the point of there. So the best way to do it is the local proximity principle, which is why we divided locality up into electoral wards. And using particular material streams and collection streams where you can sell a whole skip full of textiles or glass because it's yours. It's called a locality bin, if you like. It's a smart bin. I've met all the companies that do the bins, or a lot of them anyway, and we can put that into the system as well. So the money's going back to the community. So repair eventually will become more economical, because you can go around on a bike or walk around to somebody's and fix it. And not only can you do your white goods, but you can do all the brown goods as well. You know, the gadgets, the coffee makers, the stuff that you go in a repair cafe for. And, you know, if I may mention, the repair cafe don't deal with white goods, and the repairers are qualified. There's no way that those repairers who are overseeing it can prove they're qualified, or that the item that they repair, when it comes onto the market, that it's safe to use again. So that's the bit I'm trying to say, Lynn, to your point there, which is quite valid. But they have an opportunity to get certified and do repairs and pass our online assessment test, becoming certified with us, using the correct equipment, using genuine parts, and evidencing it in the repair history of the product that's linked. So the repair history will follow the product on the marketplace. So that's a better way of giving those repairers work instead of having to volunteer all the time. You know, but they should still volunteer. There's nothing wrong with that. But consumers don't know who's repaired it when it comes onto the market secondhand, and that's what we're addressing. So hopefully that helps answer that question as well.
Right. I think there's some debate going on about comments on repair cafes, but can I perhaps begin to draw things to a kind of slightly more abstract level by asking you, how do you see Christian values relating to day-to-day business practice?
I think, well, in a business, do you mean a Christian business or any business?
Well, how do you and your values as a Christian relate to how you have to do business on a day-to-day basis, and the business practices that are required by convention or
the law,
or the law, whatever?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're compliant with the law. Secondly, we're showing people where our money goes on a day-to-day basis. Thirdly, we've got a business directory built into the system, and businesses can get involved. And fourthly, I think love your neighbour as yourself is a very key point. I think James was a lawyer back in the day. Jesus was around, and it's a very good book to read, James, on the legal side, and loving each other and acting like that. And I think we should all act like that. But we can only be, salt and light to the earth as a Christian. So what I'm trying to do is set an example, and I'm certainly not perfect. And that's why I need accountability, and I want accountability as we make decisions for a collective society to work together with common aims and objectives and common tools that are measurable and that do good. So I think they're the things that I sort of always think about when I'm designing or writing anything. And I'm certainly not the best writer, and I'm certainly not the best speaker. There's people who can do things better than me, and I'd love people to get on board and help out, because I'm not going to be able to do it on my own. But in terms of how I operate, those four things are the way I have my values, and my decisions are made on that basis, or acting in that way. And that only comes through a relationship, we have. But we can't expect everybody to suddenly become Christians. It would be wonderful if it did. We can expect it by all means, but the reality is it doesn't happen that quick. But I think we've got a great opportunity if the church was to grab a hold of something like this to show it's actually doing something to help the environment, not just talking about the environment. And they certainly do show that they help people, and that's great, but they're always asking for funding, and I understand that. But in this model, eventually I don't think anybody would need money, because I think there's a question there about the coins. Well, there's a whole economic argument in there, or debate, because I'd love to talk about that another time, but those coins, are acceptable by anybody that's got them on their phone at the end of the day. That's how you use it. You trade, you go in it. And again, I'll put a little video in the chat if it's still allowed to be set up here, or I'll do it in an email. Do an email to you. You can put it out. That's up to you, John, because I can put a few interesting links that help people with that. And those currencies just keep getting recreated because they have a lifespan, and the lifespan is based on how many people active use it. So, the currency is always recreating new funds 75% every time, because they run out after a certain time, just like your Sainsbury's points do, or your Asda points, whatever points you get, they run out. But businesses actually will be seen to be, you'll be able to look in it directly and see what businesses are actually doing something for the local community using this model, and they can use this marketplace and grow their own businesses in it. They don't have to use their own, it saves their costs, but it shows their CSR to the local person who's deciding whether to have this window cleaner, this window frames, or this local cobbler. Whatever they do, they can be in the business directory and sign up to having the metrics shown in the business directory or locality. So hopefully that helps the business side a little bit.
Yeah. You've given a number of links in the chat, and through the recording process, we will be able to pick up on all those links, and we can send them out to people. So that's
yes. I'm not going to tell you to put money in, but I will do. I might email, but there's some facts there from Oxfam on that link there. There's a number of things. The metrics there, I'll put the metrics in there, but you find them in the article. That's that one. Oh, he's gone. I need to go into the main chat. I was answering somebody's question, I think, but he's gone.
But if there are any links that you feel you need a bit more time to get to us, just send me an email, and we'll pass it on and put it send it to anyone who's interested.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks very much.
We're coming up to 8:10 now, which is kind of getting towards the limits of kind of Zoom accessibility. You've given us a few more links. So Robert, thank you very, very much for sharing this experience and your kind of personal history with us, and the work that you're doing at present. It all sounds fascinating, and I've really enjoyed this time with you. I hope others have as well. Thank you for your generosity in spending time with us, and we all wish you all the best in the future of these ventures that you've so clearly described. So
thank you for yourselves making it possible, to be honest with you, and I just hope we can spread the word a bit more. Obviously, not in the gospel terms of that's hard to be a great thing, but obviously to get people engaged in the community would be really good.
Yeah,
we're going to do it anyway. I mean, that's the thing. It's not a question of if we're going to do it, and people might want to sit and wait and see. That's fine, but I want to get to lots of communities around the UK. So, thank you again.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very, very much, Robert.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you. So that concludes the kind of formal part of the evening.